If you don't believe that this planet's being visited by extraterrestrials by this point, you're completely dense and ignorant. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you are. Okay, now let's consider this. In the 1920s, let's go back 100 years. Okay, it's 1921, 22. Okay, we're almost in 2022, so we'll go back 21, 22. At this point in the 1921, 22 time period, most people didn't even have a radio yet in their homes. Okay, most people did not. Radio did not start becoming a big thing until 1923. Most people didn't have a car. All cars back then, there weren't even automatic transmissions. They were very, very primitive cars were back in the 1920s. We only had propeller-powered airplanes at that point. Airplanes actually hadn't been around that long yet, but that's what we had. Jets didn't come around until the 1950s. Talking about traveling in space at that time would have seemed absolutely preposterous, ridiculous. We've since went to the moon. We have rovers on Mars and the moon. Taking pictures. Taking soil samples, doing all kinds of things. We have satellites out in space, telescopes. Just on Christmas Day, 2021, James Webb Telescope launched out into space. Taking pictures of the universe, of the galaxy. We have things that are going on. Technology has advanced in the past 100 years at an incredible rate for the human race. It's unbelievable. 100 years really is not that long in the grand scheme of things. Let me tell you, I'm already beyond 50, and I can tell you those 50 years have gone by like a flash. They're over. It's unbelievable how fast it seemed. And 100 years, so another 50 years, that will go by in a flash. We have back in the early 1920s, 21, 22, people were using these old-fashioned telephones. You had to, dial. The reception wasn't that good. Look what we have now. Look at the phones. We have phones that we could carry around, take pictures, search the internet. It's unbelievable. Video, take movies with sound, color. There were no movie back in the 1920s up until the late 1920s. There were movies, going to a movie theater. They didn't have sound movies. There was no sound in the movies. The only sound there was some. If you went to some fancy movie theater, there might be an orchestra there playing. But most movie theaters back then had somebody playing a piano to give you some music. That was it. And then so television. The 1940s, that didn't start cropping up until the late after the World War II, and it wasn't until the 1950s till mostly everybody had one, and they were black and white, and you only got a handful of channels. Do you ever watch television programming from the 1950s? It's so outdated. It's unreal. It's like a different planet. From the 1950s until now, it's like a different planet. Just if you consider the advancements that the human race has made, and then you go out under the stars and you look up in the sky and you consider the fact that there are 100 billion stars in this galaxy that we are in alone, and then there are 100 billion other galaxies, and within each one of those galaxies there's 100 billion more stars in each of those 100 billion galaxies, and you're going to try to believe and put yourself in a position where it's not that there's no way that there's other intelligent life out there, and that intelligent life might not be coming here. We have the evidence. There's video evidence. There's film evidence over the years. There are the numerous people who have seen these beings over the years, since at least 1947. It seems like since 47, there's been a lot of sightings. That seems like they came here in force. It could have something to do with the fact that we started detonating atomic bombs in 1945. Maybe, who knows? That's just a guess. But 1947, a couple of years after that, that's where, this whole thing started. That's where a lot of sightings. The sightings increased. There were people before 1947 that have seen things. There were descriptions centuries ago by many people, but never to the extent that we have now. Now, is it something because we noticed it finally? We're finally paying attention to it since 1947? Now, our government officials have been keeping this quiet, keeping it secret. Whatever they know, whatever evidence they have not been sharing it with the public. And there's multiple reasons behind that, obviously. From religious concerns to panic to economics concerns. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons, right? But forget about the government. Forget about what they're not telling you, okay? There's certain people in the government that are sitting on this information for decades now. They know things that you do not know. They know things that none of us know. But the fact of the matter is that we are being visited by extraterrestrials. And if you cannot see that, you have your head up your ass. I hate to say it that way, but you do. I'm going to just be very blunt about this. Your head is up your ass very deep, actually. It's time to get your head out of there and start accepting the reality. That's what's going on. All these people over the years that have seen these beings, that have seen things, that objects in the sky that do things that our flying objects are unable to do, that objects that obviously defy physics. We have our own government now in the process, the United States government, in the process of a slow disclosure. We are in the midst of a slow disclosure, whether you want to believe that or not, but we are in the midst right now of a slow disclosure. It is happening. The Pentagon has told us, they didn't use the word extraterrestrial, but they used the word other to explain these objects that are infiltrating restricted airspace in the United States, and they're trying to send you a message. It's a slow message. They're trying to prep you. They're trying to prep you for this reality. But when you consider the advancements that humankind made since 1921-22, 100 years ago, when you consider those advancements, you look up in the sky and you see all those stars, you have to understand that there is no way that we are the only ones. And you have to also understand that the chances that we're the most advanced at this point are slim to none, because the chances of other advanced civilizations existing out in the universe are tremendous. Now, at some point, something's going to happen that's going to make it this undeniable. And people who do not believe at this point need to start changing their minds about this. You really do. Because when you consider what's going on here, look what we have done, the human race alone in 100 years. It is incredible. The technological advances that we have made are unbelievable. And that's only in 100 years. So the chances that there are other intelligent life in the universe, more intelligent than we are, intelligent civilizations that have been around a lot longer than we are, that have evolved way before we evolved, the chances of that are gigantic. There's no question. Right, that has happened. There are very learned people throughout time, throughout history, who have stepped forward bravely in certain times when it wasn't really a good thing to do because of the stigma that some people tried to attach to this situation. But they have stepped forward and they told us that yes, we are being visited by extraterrestrial beings from other planets. That's what is happening. That is what is happening. Whether you want to believe that or not, I know there's a lot of people out there who do not want to believe that. But that is what is happening. And it is time. It is time to put all your biases and your previous beliefs into the trash can and start realizing what is happening here. What they are doing, right? I have no idea what their plan is. Who knows? I know they exist because I, for one, saw one of these contraptions that they fly around in, and there is absolutely no chance that the thing that I saw was made by people on Earth. There's no way it was manufactured by any human, because this thing did things and moved in such a way, it made no sound whatsoever, right? There is absolutely no way we have evolved technologically to make what I saw back in 1994. And I'm just one person. There's been so many other people who have seen these objects. There have been people, in addition to this, there are people out there who have come in contact with alien beings. And these alien beings, they have the ability to make people forget, for the most part. A lot of times when people are abducted by these beings, they are, whatever they're doing to them, right? They do things to them in some, whatever their craft that they have, they do things to them and then put them back to where they got them. And then for most of the time, these people forget about it. Some of these people, somehow, some of these memories bleed through, and sometimes memories are rediscovered through hypnosis. This is what's been going on. There is proof in various films throughout the decades. The most interesting proof to me is from the early days, from the late 1940s throughout the 50s into the 60s, because back then there was no CGI. You couldn't do stuff like you could today. Today there is a lot of hoaxes on the internet. There's a lot of video that's completely false, and a lot of times you could tell right when you look at it. And then there's some video that you know is not false. For instance, just recently, there was a video that was taken by pilots over the South China Sea of some objects flying over clouds that defy logic. It defies what we usually see flying around in the sky. I believe that footage was authentic. I could be wrong, but I believe that footage was authentic. But there has been other film and video taken over the years that shows that these things are real. There are people who have conducted, a person named Ted Phillips over the decades has conducted tests on soil where some of these craft have landed, right? And the soil was all dried out and the vegetation wouldn't grow there. Sometimes these craft, when they land, it does strange things to the soil. And Ted Phillips has looked at hundreds, if not thousands, of different sites throughout the world, and did sampling and sampled the soil and found anomalies with the soil. There have been objects that were removed from people who claim to have been abducted by aliens. These objects are unearthly. They apparently contain nanotechnology, okay, that we don't understand. We don't know what they're doing or why they were implanted or what they're doing. Whether it's some sort of way to tag us like we would tag an animal, nobody knows. So, if you do not believe in this at this point, you are behind the times. You are a fool. You are anyone who does not want to try to accept what is happening here over the decades. You are a fool. You need to do some research on this. You need to open your mind and prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for a change, right? There's a change in our thinking, in our history, in the way we look at ourselves and the world and the galaxy and the universe and the solar system, all of it. I know it's tough. For some people out there to accept this, right? But these people right now who keep trying to deny the facts and try to basically sit back in their armchairs, and these skeptics, let me tell you something, decades from now, people are going to look back on these skeptics and they're going to look like fools if they're even remembered. The people who are going to be remembered during this period of time for the past 75 years, with regard to the UFO situation, are the people that thought there was something to it, that believed that something was going on, that knew that something was going on, that accepted that something was going on. For instance, the late Stanton Friedman, a nuclear physicist who accepted the reality of what's happening. So I say this, it's time for people. The government is sending you a message. They're not coming out and saying extraterrestrials, but they are easing you into it. They are easing you into it. That's what is happening right now. People like Lou Elizondo, I don't know what what their plan is or what they thought of behind the scenes, right? But we are getting, whether Lou Elizondo is part of that plan or he's just coming out because he wants to, I don't know what the truth of the situation is, right? But they are trying to tell you something. They're trying to ease you into this notion, this idea that, hey, maybe we're not alone. Well, I am here to tell you we are definitely not alone. We are definitely not alone. There are beings coming to this planet that are not from this planet. And I don't know what they're doing or maybe they're just studying us. Who knows? I don't know. But the reality is we are not the only ones in the universe who are intelligent. There are people, beings, whatever you want to call them, that are coming here that are more technologically advanced than we are. There is no question about it. And it is time for people who are just not there yet to start getting there. It's time to start getting there. Don't be caught, by surprise. You don't want to be caught by surprise, right? It's time to start getting on board. It's time to start thinking about this. Do some research. Do your own private research, right? There's a lot of great books out there. If I was somebody who didn't believe in this and never even considered it, I would start with UFOs and the National Security State Volume 1 by Richard Dolan. That's where I would start. It's basically it's a historical record that goes from the 40s into the 70s. And then he has a Volume 2 that goes from the early 70s into 1991. And explains to you what has happened over the course of those decades, things that have happened over the course of those decades that the mainstream media really did not play much of a part in, other than to play along with the government during those times and pretty much debunk it, stigmatize this whole subject. There is actually that stigmatization is going to reverse itself. It's starting to reverse itself. If you don't believe in this, if you don't accept this at this point, at some point you're going to look like a fool. You're going to look like a fool. So it's time. It's time to do your own research. Stop listening to people out there who just try to come up with bogus excuses for everything when they don't really have any kind of credible evidence to debunk the things they're trying to debunk. It's time to do your own research, because you do not want to be caught by surprise. We are moving into a different realm of history, and it's time to start considering what is happening here, what's been happening, and we got to consider our place in the universe.